Hello, welcome to another edition of Physics with Sue. I did just notice that today is St. Patrick's Day. Thank God I just happened to be wearing my green turtleneck and my green plaid pants. What a coincidence. Let's get started with today's lesson, why don't we? Okay, so I'm going to start with a review of Lenz's law, or have you try to practice Lenz's law from before. So here you see a scenario, which is just like what was in the last video. You have an existing B field that is out of the page. You can see with these out of the page arrows. Here you have a loop of wire, and in this loop or on these rails is this metal rod right here that can move left or right. Okay, and while this part of the wire is fixed, and there's a resistor there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rod, and now I'm going to physically push it to the left like this. Okay, so what you should be able to do now is use Lenz's law to find the direction of the induced current as a result of me moving this rod to the left. All right, so try to use Lenz's law. Why don't you pause the video now? And I'll give you time to try to use Lenz's law to find the direction of the induced current. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, I'm hoping you guys paused the video and were able to find out the direction of the induced current in this loop as a result of me pushing this rod to the left. And here's what you should have done. You see this area right here. This is the area that we're talking about that you have the magnetic flux through. The flux is changing. It's getting smaller because this area is getting smaller. Okay, so the flux is definitely decreasing. This flux was out of the page because this B field is out of the page. And because the flux is decreasing, we are going to induce a current that needs to reinforce the existing B field. So we need to have an induced current that's going to reinforce this out of the page B field. And if you use right-hand rule 1b, you should be able to find that the current that's going to create an out-of-the-page B field looks like it should be counterclockwise. So there should be a counterclockwise current flowing in this loop of wire as a result of me moving this rod to the left. All right, so that was Lenz's law. Okay, that's what you should have learned in the last video. Now, I'm going to go on with this scenario because there is actually one more effect that happens as a result of this induced current. So I'm going to have you focus in on the current in this rod right here. And see the current that's in this rod right here? That now is going to act like a test wire. A current test wire in an existing B field. See this B field being this out of the page B field right here. And so you have charges moving up in a B field. The very first thing we learned in this unit is that these moving charges are now going to feel a force due to this existing B field. And so we can use our V cross B method to find out the direction of that resulting force. So use V up cross B out of the page. You should get a resulting magnetic force to the right. Now, what does that mean that there's a magnetic force to the right? Okay, well, it doesn't mean it's going to move to the right. I mean, I'm pushing this thing to the left. All right, so this thing is definitely moving to the left. I'm pushing it to the left. But as a result of me pushing to the left, there's going to be induced current, and this induced current will have a magnetic force to the right. And what that magnetic force will do is sort of cause me to, it's going to push against my own force. So as I move this thing to the left, I'm going to feel it pushing back against me. Like it won't move to the right, but as I'm pushing it to the left, I feel this resistive backwards force fighting against me as I try to push this thing to the left, right? So let's sort of see what happens. Start this over again, and let's sort of see what happens. Say I were to move this rod from the very beginning to the right instead, okay? So you should be able to do Lenz's law to find out the direction of the induced current. All right, if you do that properly, looks like flux is increasing, so I need to cancel out the existing B field. So I need a B field into the page. And the B field of the current that will give me a B field into the page looks like a clockwise current. All right, so here's a clockwise current as a result of me moving this rod to the right. And then now I can do the V cross B on this segment of wire. So I'm going to do V cross B on this segment of wire, and I should see, if we do V cross B properly, I should get a force now to the left. So what's going to happen? As I push this thing to the right, I'm going to feel a backwards resistive magnetic force to the left, kind of fighting my efforts to push it to the right. Okay? So notice then, if I try to push it to the left, I'm going to feel a backwards force to the right. When I push it to the right, I'm going to feel a backwards magnetic force to the left. And I want you to sort of be clear, like, for example, say there was no magnetic field at all. Well, when I push this thing to the left, I'm not going to feel anything. Why? Because, well, there's no magnetic field, which means there's no induced current. And if there's no induced current, then there's no magnetic force. So if there was no magnetic field, I can move this thing to the left or right without any sort of resistance at all. I can just move it freely to the left, move it freely to the right, and there won't be any sort of resistive force. But the fact that with the magnetic field, the motion will induce a current that will also then create a resulting magnetic force, which is always generally going to be in the opposite direction that it moves. All right, that I was originally trying to move this object. All right. Let's try another scenario. This is another scenario we've seen before. Okay, so we have this existing B field right here. It looks like it's into the page. And I'm going to take this loop right here, that loop of wire, and I'm going to move it to the right. So that right here enters in, and then it travels through the B field, and then here it leaves the B field. Okay. So what you should already know from the last video is that as it's entering in, a current will be induced. All right, so why don't you go ahead and try to find the direction of the induced current using Lenz's law. And then after you find the direction of the induced current, find the resulting magnetic force on this loop of wire, and specifically take a look at this leading edge, what direction the force, the magnetic force on the current that's going to be in this leading edge of wire is going to be. All right, so why don't you go ahead and pause the video now, and to repeat, pause the video, and while you're paused, you should find out A, the direction of the induced current, and then B, the direction of the magnetic force on that induced current. Okay, go ahead and pause the video. Okay, so I'm hoping that you have now found the direction of the induced current, so there would be step one. So right now what you should have done, as this enters the B field, the flux is increasing, which means the direction of the induced current needs to be, looks like it should be counterclockwise. All right, so here is the direction of the induced current. Okay, now I'm going to take a look at this leading edge right here, this part of the wire right here that has a current going up in it. I'm going to treat that as a test wire now, do my V cross B method, and if I do V cross B, I should see I get a force to the left. Okay. So I want to once again emphasize, when it receives a force to the left, that doesn't mean it's going to move to the left. Remember, forces don't cause motion. Forces kind of just cause acceleration or fighting any existing forces that I might be acting on it. So like if I'm physically grabbing this guy and I'm pushing it to the right, well, that leftward force is just going to fight my rightward force. It doesn't mean it actually physically moves it to the left. All right. Or here's another scenario you can imagine. Say this loop I had already thrown it to the right. So now it's just coasting to the right. Okay. So this arrow right here would be a velocity, not a force. So it's just coasting to the right. So out here, it's just going to coast at a constant speed. But as soon as it enters the B field right here, you get an induced current. And this backwards magnetic force is going to cause this object to slow down. All right, so right here, it's coasting to the right at constant speed, and right here, there's no forward force because it's not really pushing on it, it's just coasting to the right. But it definitely will have a backwards leftward force, magnetic force, and that backwards magnetic force will cause this loop to slow down. So you can use the same analysis that would happen here. So say when I was saying I moved this guy to the left, say it was just this rod that was already coasting to the left due to some previous motion, all right? Then this rightward magnetic force would cause that rod to slow down, okay? So I want you to try this again, back to this scenario right here. So try to do the same steps as this rod is, as this loop is leaving the magnetic field. So find the direction of the induced current, and then find the direction of the magnetic force on the induced current, okay? And try those steps right now. So I want you to go ahead and pause it and try those steps. So if you did those steps, you should have found ultimately that the induced current would have been that way, okay? Also to the left. So, you find your induced current, get your induced current direction, do your V cross B on this side of the loop, and you should have found a force to the left. So one thing you notice is kind of being pretty consistent here, that the direction of the resulting magnetic force is always in the opposite direction of the original motion of the thing that was moving, right? So this thing was moving right, it feels a force to the this thing's moving left, it feels a force to the right. This thing is moving right, it feels a force to the left. This thing is moving right, it feels a force to the left. Moving right feels a force to the left. Notice when it was moving right inside the B field, there was no induced current, so there wouldn't have been any magnetic force at all. So it would have been coasting while it was driving through the B field. It was only feeling a force while it was entering and while it was leaving. But when there is an induced current, the magnetic force is always going to be in the opposite direction that the object was moving. Now, when you think about that in a grander scheme, that actually makes sense. It's always going to be the opposite direction it was moving, right? Because let's think about this from an energy point of view. So right here, it has kinetic energy. As it enters this B field, you now induce a current. So now it has gained some sort of electrical energy. But from an energy point of view, you can't just gain a current without any other subsequent loss of energy from something else. So where's the energy for this current coming from was taking it from the kinetic energy of the loop that it had before. So in order to gain this current and gain the electrical energy of this current, it has to lose kinetic energy as a result. That is the only way it can satisfy conservation energy. So if you've somehow made a mistake somewhere and found the force was to the right, well, that would cause this object to speed up then, which would kind of violate energy because it can't gain kinetic energy and gain current electrical energy at the same time, all right? So it kind of makes sense from an energy point of view why the force is always in the opposite direction it's moving, because, if you're going to gain electrical current energy, it has to take away the kinetic energy of the existing motion of the object, okay? All right, so hopefully that concludes today's lesson. Well, not hopefully, it does conclude today's lesson. Hopefully you guys understood what was going on there. And right now, I say you should be able to finish the entire night packet, the magnetic induction night packet. You should be able to finish that entire part of the homework that I posted recently. All right, so once again, email me if you have any questions or something like that, and I will be getting back in touch with you later, perhaps. All right, bye-bye.